All right. It is 16:20 on the West Coast. This is Todd from the Molehill, thanking you for coming to the 420 candle burn. Let's see what happened. But before we do that, let's see what we got here. We're smoking Summer Crush Shatter. So some Summer Crush. I put the shatter down first, and then I throw on top of that some Double OG crossed with Chem Bubble. And I'm guessing the bubble is referring to the fact it's bubble hash. So we got a little dual strikey here. A little dual strikey. Little IPA. There we go. Now we're ready to look at Bitcoin, boys and girls. Okay, let's see where we're at. We took a bull run, dudes. What's our current value at? Wow, currently at 10,881, but we clocked it at the 420 hour at 10,895, which is a run up of $296 from where it was this morning at 420 this morning. We recovered the tumble from yesterday and then took a huge run. But let's see here. At about, well, we took a tumble. Let's see. Well, I wrote it down. At 6:25 this morning, Bitcoin recovered from a fall of 2% in 2.5 hours on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, in 2.5 hours, we lost 2% value. Um, that's when Trump announced that he was not going to send out any monies. That's already been reversed somewhat. They've already decided to give up the fight on that a little bit and send out the monies. Money machine's gonna go burr, it sounds like, and so the market responded accordingly by shooting straight up. In fact, we'll get a measurement on this while we're talking about it, but um, we have a pretty pretty straightforward wall there. What do we got? $175 in a 25-minute period is one of the climbs we had today. Before we found ourselves just sort of hovering just under 10.9k, and we find ourselves in a sideways motion here. What time? What time did we stop this run at? 8 in the morning. So since 8 this morning, we've been doing some sideways motion. The other big news that people didn't quite anticipate um, was that Jack Dorsey of Twitter, Square. Well, let's go ahead and look at our news actually. Do we have that one on here? Well, it was on here earlier, but Jack Dorsey of Twitter, Square, and I think Cash App. I think those are his things. Everyone knows he likes Bitcoin a lot. His company, there we go, 5,000 Bitcoin, almost 4.7k Bitcoin to their balance sheet. Um, he likes Bitcoin. He has designed the Cash App for it. He thinks it's the future of money. It's not crazy to think why they go acquire a lot of Bitcoin, but I think it's the quantity there that sent our markets firing upward. And then, of course, it was also the fact the money machine's going to go burst soon enough. All right. So that's your prices right there. What's our Ichimoku cloud look like for the forecast? Let's get a better forecast here. Let's zoom in a little bit. And let's bring up a more detailed cloud with a little more, whoops, with a little more information going on. So what do we got here? We actually have everything in really tight, as you can see. We have the leading and the lagging spans. I mean, you can barely tell which is which, and they're both right on top of the candles. They're both inside the cloud. And then the lagging span, I'm probably calling this the wrong thing. I'll have to figure that out for next episode, is way back here. And that's trading at literally the price. Now, this is always if this is above the price or below the price is going to move towards it. And then these are going to act as support and resistance. They are technically acting as a small amount of resistance right here, but you know, it seems like it's indicative more of the sideways movement, especially since the cloud itself, as you can see, has a mild amount of support moving forward, and that support's pretty steady. It doesn't look like that's going to change too much. It's narrowing the tiniest bit. It looks like way out of the tip, but not much more than that. So the cloud doesn't tell us much today, actually. Let's get off the cloud and look at the Bollinger Bands. They're tight. Now, we're zoomed way in. We're on 5-minute bars here. But this is to get a more historical sense of where Bollinger Bands are usually at. Now, even this period for Bitcoin is a little bit more tight on the bands. If we keep going back, we're going to find wider bands. This is like a little more typical. When we get all the way out here, that's pretty tight. The bands are touching, and the price action is occasionally skirting just outside the bands, especially on the resistance side. So we're still looking at some big moves. I mean, it was coiled up here, and that's a big move, but it still looks coiled, and it's hard to say which way it's going to want to go after that. Let's use the EMA and see if we can get a sense of that. So if you look at the EMAs, I like to zoom in on these. My darker ones move faster than my lighter colored ones. But yeah, as you can see, they're generally oriented to up, although it does seem like they could be getting ready to turn down. And we have a little bit of resistance on the fastest moving one. I mean, it's like ever so slightly turned down, and this guy's just almost flat, but still somewhat up. So most indicators are kind of looking good. They're looking up, or they're being indecisive. And so the ones that are not indecisive are indicating up. So yeah, probably some upward price movement. Hard to say how much, because I think it's clear that we mostly went through a correction. I mean, if you just draw a line, you can see that without these breakdowns, we would have probably been here to begin with anyway. So this is like the slow, steady build towards 11K. I personally don't see that happening anytime very soon, but you know, we'll see. Okay, great. That's the price action. Let's move on to news. So DeFi is just absolutely collapsing in on itself. 25% market cap drops in a day for an entire sector of crypto. Let's see. I mean, you could probably guess, but Sushi was the worst offender by a good chunk, and then Uni takes a pretty decent hit being involved with the Sushi thing unintentionally, and then Yearn Finance just by way of being part of DeFi, I suppose. But yeah, is this the whales moving on? What exactly are we seeing here? Are we seeing a negative reaction to the Sushi swap situation where they got ripped off? Because that's what I'm calling it. I don't know. That dude's trying to call it something else, the chef or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think DeFi sounded like a lot of smoke and mirrors to me. Sounded like a lot of smoke and mirrors to me for a long time. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe the Emperor wears no clothes is starting to show. Who knows? The next item I was going to show you guys is U.S. Attorney General released guidelines for enforcing crypto laws. That's good. That's mostly a good thing, especially if we have an Attorney General who is like neutral or positive towards crypto. And I think that the federal government is generally pretty neutral. You'll see here that they are talking specifically about BitMEX, multiple illegal activities. BitMEX was not up to code. And there's another news article where BitMEX is losing a ton of their volume right now because of the government checking on them. So, play by the rules, dudes. You know? There's not much to say here other than more regulation is coming, and like hopefully it's a good thing, because uncertainty is never great. So if we can be certain about how the laws are going to be enforced, that's going to be good. This report talks about legitimate uses and illicit uses, so it's good that we didn't see a one-sided report come out of the government. It's good that we're seeing something that's a little bit more objective. So we're going to make good decisions and not irrational decisions on the cryptocurrency. Okay, so similar. Let's stay with the government here. They are eyeballing big tech again, and they are looking at, this time the phrase breaking up has been kicked around. So there's the same four companies that have been making trips to Capitol Hill to explain how they're not monopolies, I guess. Which is bullshit, because they are. We don't have to get into the details of exactly what's going on, but if we get the general idea that meeting for crypto, if we get the general idea that some of these bigger companies might find themselves broken up, especially we're looking at Facebook. There's opportunities for blockchain-based technologies to sort of fill in these gaps, and they're waiting for maybe a market shakeup, or they need a market shakeup in order to get some space in there. So that's a pretty It's a pretty interesting thing going on there, especially when we're talking about like Facebook and the Libra. A lot of the, I can't remember if it was in this article, blockchain-based social media. So, this is a sector. I went ahead and like followed this, rabbit hole a little bit. Like none of these sites are great. They're not even the first thing that comes up when you search the terms. Um, None of them have a user base that even comes close to replacing Facebook in terms of like the dominant social media platform, or Twitter in terms of like how people can communicate, companies can distribute information, etc. Um, so if some of these guys are hobbled by the government, right or wrong, then it gives opportunities for decentralized and democratic systems to move into their place, which would be really, really interesting. So let's see, let's see. Okay, this one I don't want to. There's not much to talk about here except for that a tired and true company from the traditional finance side, one of their execs is on Gemini. Gemini's, if you guys are not aware, this is probably one of the more legit um, exchanges. So this is going to be the opposite of BitMEX, right? And this is going to be New York State, which is the toughest place to run any kind of exchange, and that's where they're based out of. So when they're jumping through New York's hoops, they're gonna clear the United States hoops, as far as I understand it, and they're gonna be kept on the up and up. So it's like the polar opposite of BitMEX. And then you're looking at a traditional finance company executive, and hopefully, let's see what we're talking about. And they're from the legal division, so it would appear to me that it's for Gemini's sake to maybe, I don't know, increase or maintain their foothold in this as a exchange in New York, which is not easy to do, or be the most legitimate and the most like bank-like exchange, um, following Kraken getting the go-ahead to build an actual bank, which is interesting. But yeah, Gemini is a good one. I would recommend them. Okay, so on the topic of employment, Coinbase is hemorrhaging employees following controversial closure stance. So if you're not um, familiar with this, Coinbase came along and says something like, anyone, what did he actually say? But yeah, I don't know. They don't quote this actual part. They just say which required employees to avoid political and social distractions, instead focus more on the core mission building. So I don't know if they were trying to like control people's social media outside of work. I don't know if they were trying to control conversations inside. I don't really know exactly what and how this policy affected workers on the daily, but they subsequently decided to make a generous exit package available to any employee who didn't feel like they could be on board with this direction. Ah, okay. Um, I mean, if you have to make the exit package available to any employee, it sounds like enough people are pissy and quitting that. Well, there you go. 60 of this exchange equivalent to 5% of the workforce. Hmm. Additional workers have expressed interest in leaving. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. It doesn't sound good. It's not a good look. I think it would be a lot better off for them to, I don't know, like embrace the social change that's happening around them. But Coinbase is kind of the bad guy in a lot of ways anyway. I mean, their servers go offline whenever Bitcoin makes a huge price move, and people who are trying to use Coinbase as their primary exchange end up missing out on very important opportunities that the maybe the employees and maybe the executives at Coinbase don't miss out on, because somehow maybe they are still connected, right? That has happened more than once in response to big price moves for Bitcoin. So Coinbase finds itself with an exodus of actual crypto traders. Ooh, let's get this ball going, man. Um, from time to time, every time that occurs. So, not great. They're kind of their own worst enemy. They're a fantastic exchange, but they can't get out of their own way, apparently. Um, Even if it's this guy's personal opinion, like, why would you bother publishing it? These two news stories I thought were cool. This is kind of like about Bitcoin getting bigger throughout the world, but they're both kind of related. This one's just older. So one from today. is a British financial tech company expands banking services to Indian crypto customers. So this is a bank, a regular bank, but they're offering crypto services to customers in India. So that's pretty cool. Kasha, it's called. Whew, that's some good hash. Kasha, it's called. And we do want to see more regular banks taking crypto seriously, and it's interesting that it's in a market like India instead of the UK, where like this bank's actually operating in. But let's see what they say about that. The companies start platform to the euro, British pound, US dollar, December this year, huh? Well, let's see. Keep an eye on this Kasha thing. But yeah, I think it's maybe that answers the question I was kind of pondering a little bit. Maybe it's just the government regulation in India is so much more friendly to crypto, perhaps. Um, and then so similarly, there's another company that has an app. I checked it out. You can get it right now on the Google Play Store, probably on iPhone. I mean, they say iPhone. I'm sure you can. I just don't have iPhones handy. But it's called Patricia. So this one's based out of Nigeria, and its goal is to get Africa more connected to the Bitcoin network, more connected to the world, right? Through all that. Um, so making Bitcoin usable. Insights from Patricia here. Patricia has some interesting little things going on. You can pay for airtime with your cell phones, and you can actually sell airtime back that's unused. You can buy and sell gift cards also. So that's kind of interesting, like buy and sell, right? So you're looking at that almost as being like another form of exchange or another store of value. Like essentially, are you owning a little bit of USD because you're buying like a gift card in USD and maybe you're holding it for a short amount of time and selling it back, trying to realize gains. Not necessarily sure. I've noticed. Oh man, what was the product I had on my phone? Um, there's another crypto app that was focused on trying to get people using crypto in Africa, and they also offered you to pay for airtime through your app. So that's interesting that that's actually it sounds a little different than the way we do it in the States, like in terms of how we pay for our phones. It sounds like there maybe it's more common to pay for, what's that called, like track phone, pay for your airtime. Um, so yeah, that's interesting thoughts. So these are two different areas of the world with developing economies that have traditionally not had as much access to traditional banking, right? Traditional banking has not been available to all citizens on the Indian subcontinent or on the African continent. They've lagged behind the rest of the world comparatively. Like that's something that I've heard from other news sources like NPR, unrelated news articles. Um, those are also places where certain technologies are sort of leapfrogging over the stuff that we had in the West in the 20th century. So instead of having a big ass power grid, you'll have a lot more local power grids that are running their solar, their electric, their geothermal, their whatever. Did I say solar, electric? Their solar, their wind, their whatever. Um, Instead of having a lot of big institutional banks, you'll have individuals using their phones for crypto trading devices instead. Apparently, like that's the sort of picture I'm getting for these two areas, and that's interesting. It'd be really cool if there was big chunks of the planet where people were paying with crypto, and then that, I don't know, it almost like prove it works, so we could get more of that going here in the states. But that's about all I had for everybody today. That's my news articles. That's my price analysis. So hopefully everyone's having a good one. Uh, See you all 4:20 in the morning.